Somebody needs to be held accountable for my son, for everybody, others' kid. Like, somebody needs to be held accountable. It's too many in such a short period of time.
The former intensive care unit nurse accused of hurting premature babies is back trending in true crime because now she's facing 6 additional charges. Tuesday, defendant Erin Strotman was served with 6 new indictments and now stands accused of injuring 4 different babies from 2022 to 2024. Prosecutors say she's also been charged in the treatment of a 5th baby, but that child wasn't injured. Scripps News reporter Melissa Hippolyte spoke with the prosecuting attorney who describes these shocking allegations at Henrico Doctors Hospital.
When you're talking about a process where mandated reporters are supposed to notify the agency who oversees whatever area that we're covering, and there's a failure to do that, that is always concerning.
Her office has still not brought any charges related to the 4 babies that were found with fractures in 2023, but she said detectives are still diligently investigating those cases.
We're getting there. I can't get into the details about what the process is that we may be engaging in as to why we are going forth and presenting the 23 babies in a different way.
Cameras were installed in the NICU at Henrico Doctors Hospital after those babies' injuries were discovered. That video evidence has helped prosecutors charge Strotman in connection with the 2024 babies. But even without video evidence, Taylor said they were confident bringing charges related to the 2022 baby.
A judge has allowed Strotman to remain out on bond, saying that the new charges were of lesser concern pertaining to bond because they occurred prior to the pending matters already before the court. She's due back in court in May. The tentative trial date is set for February 9th, 2026. We're asking, though, should the bond be revoked in the wake of the new charges? The judge saying no, because it's part of the same course of action that got her here in the first place. But one of the rules of bond is you can't pick up any new cases. What should the judge do? You all know how I feel about this. I never thought she should have been out in the first place. So let's talk about it. Let me bring back in Attorney John Phillips and welcome in Attorney Michael J. Brown and Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Good morning to you all. Michael, let me begin with you. You're a high-profile criminal defense attorney, once was a prosecutor, so you can understand the prosecutor who might want her back in jail. What should the judge do here?
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, everyone. The ultimate issue on bail in our world is to secure the defendant's attendance in court. So although it may be repulsive that she's out of custody and everybody wants to see her behind bars because everybody prejudged the case and the allegations are obviously horrific, ultimately, if she's reporting to court, if she comes to each of her court dates, if her ties to the community are significant, and she has already posted whatever bail she posted, probably not a reason to change the bail status. And keep in mind, Julie, I know that there's new charges, but my understanding is these all predate her arraignment on the initial charges. So if that's the case, she may very well pay the piper when it's all said and done. But as long as she's coming back to court, I don't see a reason to change her bail status, quite frankly.
Sure. Michael, appreciate it. Excellent points. Excellent points. Sometimes we may not like it, but the law is the law. And with her out on bail, we know that there are strict conditions in terms of monitoring. My understanding at last check, she was staying with her parents. It's not like she's free to do whatever. John Phillips, you know this is a media case. You have many media cases. Would you look at this, please, from that perspective of this defendant and the eyes being shined on her? Your thoughts on the bond, please.
I had a similar case where we had 1 or 2 parents with an abusive pediatric dentist. And the media got a hold of it, and next thing you know, we had 10, we had 30, we had 100 over the course of decades. Some didn't have a civil statute of limitations. Some didn't have had an expired criminal statute of limitations. But, you know, the process worked through, and media helped because one parent sees another parent and said, "Oh, this happened to my child as well," and you know, it's the recidivism here. You know, certainly there's not going to be future if she's not working for a hospital, but there's enough on a victim standpoint. You know, with children with broken femurs, tibias, and ribs, that it's particularly malicious. It's particularly, offensive, that I think the court could go either way. You could be Mr. Brown's more strict interpretationalist of the Constitution and say, but she's going to appear. But on the same token, her acts are pretty disgusting, and charges of child abuse and malicious, with maliciousness in the title, could warrant, no bond as well.
Certainly. John, thank you for all of that. I know we all detest these charges, these allegations. I want to turn now away from the legal aspect of it to the psychological aspect and what may have been going on. Dr. Sue Kornbluth, I know you've been digging into this case. You have a lot to say about it. For anybody wondering who could possibly do something like this, how might you answer that question, please?
Well, this screams to me that this is somebody that clearly has mental health issues, but probably was abused herself. And she doesn't have a voice to express probably what happened to herself. And she's preying on the most innocent of victims here to hurt them, which are these precious, precious little babies. Now, there is a history, which I read, Julie, that she has a background of using cocaine and also was seeing a psychiatrist. I don't know what she was seeing the psychiatrist for, but cocaine, can make you do things that you wouldn't normally do. What hurts the most here, I think, is for these parents who are going through this. I mean, this is their babies. They want to protect them no matter what, trusting in the system that a nurse wouldn't hurt their child. So my heart goes out to the parents, and I also believe that she is somebody that needs severe help. And to me, Julie, this is just such a horrific story of abuse on so many levels.
Dr. Sue, you're so right. This is all extremely helpful, everything you're sharing. And I want to dovetail off of something you just said about how your heart breaks for the parents. And so as this criminal process rolls on for defendant Erin Strotman, these parents may be left wondering, does the buck stop with that defendant?
It was intentional, it was child abuse, it was the most severe level that it can be, and that kind of definitely opened our eyes to it, because nobody had ever said that before. Nobody had ever said, this is child abuse, this was intentional.
Henrico Doctors Hospital initially put Strotman on paid administrative leave in 2023 after an internal investigation was done. This after babies linked to Strotman's care showed consistent injuries, but the hospital didn't report those injuries to CPS. So after Strotman was arrested, Henrico Doctors Hospital released this statement saying in part, quote, "We're both shocked and saddened by this development in the investigation and are focused on continuing to care for our patients and providing support to our colleagues who've been deeply and personally impacted." Goes on to say, for more than 30 years, the NICU at Henrico Doctors Hospital has provided necessary and life-saving care to babies in Central Virginia, and we remain focused on ensuring the availability of that care in our community. So this morning we're wondering, is the hospital at all responsible here? John Phillips, you do a lot of civil work in your practice. What do you say?
This was my face when you were talking about that. It was a big old eye roll. I see this all the time. I'd certainly advise the victims to watch out for words like intent, because it'll invalidate insurance policy coverage and create a mess there. But absolutely, the hospitals on notice of this. Absolutely, the first time an incident happens, under neglect laws, there's a little bit of protection for a defendant. But by the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh time, certainly they're on notice. They're doing nothing. You're not going to be able to introduce cameras necessarily because they were post-remedial measures, things put in, and the law says let's encourage that, not discourage it. But certainly there's civil liability on the hospital.
Right. John, thank you for that. Dr. Sue, let me go to you here, please. I know this case has you fired up. When you think about the hospital and what they could have possibly done to prevent this, I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts. By all means.
Well, we've seen this so many times, Julie. I've talked about this a lot on the show as well. When you see something, report it. It is not for you to determine as a citizen or anybody if it is abuse or not. If it looks like abuse or if it looks like it's something that shouldn't be happening or somebody's being hurt, call it in. And it seems that the ball was missed here, that somebody knew what was going on. It wasn't called in. And that father is absolutely right. It could have prevented this from happening over and over and over again. This goes back to what we know as the innocent bystander effect. Everybody thinks somebody else is going to do it, but in most cases, that's not what happens. If you see it, report it.